Why struggle through a post-merger integration when you can glide through it? Why deal with the PMI integration challenges when you can overcome them even before they occur? Why move slow when you can move at pace? What are the world's leading PMI experts doing right now to achieve profit-accelerating integrations? This podcast will give you all the answers to these questions and many more. My name is Dudley Peacock, and welcome to the 100 Days and Beyond podcast. Welcome to everyone to our latest show, 100 Days and Beyond, where we tackle the various aspects of merger and integration, or let's call it post-merger integration or post-acquisition integration work. But today we're coming in with a completely different slant. We've got Paul, who's really a marketing expert, I'd say, a guy that really understands marketing and business growth in terms of actually generating new work and so on. And in fact, has dedicated quite a few years around that. But the beauty is that Paul has got, I would say, probably the best of both worlds, because you've been involved in both post-merger integration work and the marketing aspect, and pulling those together, I think, creates a certain element of genius, I think, in terms of the world that we live in. So, Paul, welcome to the show. I mean, when we had our initial chat last week, I thought, wow, okay, this is going to be a really good one. So let's just get some sort of background, give an understanding. You got various, when I look at your LinkedIn profile, there are quite a few things in there that I think is best you explain, because I think the background is just phenomenal. So let's hear it. So let's hear your journey. How'd you get into it? What your experiences are, and how did you get to where you are today?
Thank you for having me, Dudley. I'm active in post-merger optimization, but also the period before that, establishing the word of a website or e-commerce site. So that's a very important part of my business. I work with companies establishing growth in their companies, in their markets. But a very important part of my M&A work is digital M&A, and especially website valuation. So I established a method of gauging the worth of a website or an e-commerce site. And that method is being used pre-merger, of course, but also after the merger has taken place. We want to know what is the worth we have acquired, and how can we grow upon that. With website valuation, I like to look under the hood of the website, you can say. So I established 5 main elements that drive worth in a website. That's organic strength, online authority strength, conversion strength, technical strength, and advertising and social strength. So these are the 5 components that make up the worth of a website. And that's my main focus in the whole M&A journey, you can say.
That's why I found it fascinating, because most practitioners are a lot more focused on, I would say, blueprints and plans, and where you come at it from a completely different angle. You say, where does the value lie in a business in
Yeah.
terms of its digital assets? And the valuation of a digital asset is incredibly difficult. How do you value a website? How do you value even the marketing automation that happens in the background? How do you value brand, reach, customer base, customers buying from you on a regular basis as opposed to one-off purchases? I mean, there's a ton of varying things. I know you've broken it down to those 5 different areas, but I'm guessing that even those different areas have really complexities within them that are hard to explain just off the bat. But I
Yes.
thought
Yeah, but
your whole journey really is around taking the M&A side, looking at the valuation. How do you actually value the company in the first instance? And
yeah,
then you talk
well,
about optimization and the marketing optimization. So it's like, I look at the company, I can value the company, what it's really worth, because often the people that generally value companies or do due diligence or even look at the M&A process are saying, look, it's a great company, it's making money, but is it really making money? Or it's got revenue, but it's got no profit, or it's got, or there's no revenue, there's no profit, but in fact, those assets are worth something. I mean, there are so many different scenarios. Let's just paint a bit of picture around that side of things, the valuations, and And just looking at digital assets as a category that's now become more and more prevalent in the M&A space.
It's really a great challenge, of course. We start with data. Historical data, because all the data is historical, of course, and it's important. And of course, there's data within the website. Or we go to analytics, to all sorts of CRM products or whatever. We can see what has happened up to now within the website. And of course, there are results. With e-commerce sites, it's very obvious, of course. There are sales, there are profits. You can attribute these profits or sales to the website. It makes a big difference, of course, when you have an e-commerce site or just an information-based website, because then attribution of the results is a big challenge. But we can do that also. But you come up with results, with financial data, and with data from the website. But when you go through all this data, you can have a look upon the future. How much mileage is there still in it? Has it strength or weaknesses altogether? We can gauge. That's a different approach than from an accounting approach. That when you only look at historical figures and say, well, this e-commerce site has made up a revenue of, let's say, 5 million. Over the last 10 years, you can see an evolution of results. You can multiply that and try to look into the future based upon the historical data. But I want to see within the website if there is still strength enough within the website that can push this revenue, or has it some weaker parts that may tell you, well, we did good up to now, but I see some weak parts that may diminish these revenues in the future. In most cases, the other way around. There's much more strength within a website than you might expect when you only look at historical data. That's a big difference. In most cases, when you have a growing business and a growing website, there's more strength within the website than you can see only looking at results. But it's not always the case. Sometimes the verdict is that it's a weak website, a weak website, well, relatively speaking.
Yeah. So, I mean, I love the way you explain it, because the traditional approach, and I think that is really to do with where valuation methodologies, when you're doing valuations, you look at DCF and you look at normal assets, less liabilities or whatever it is, if you're looking at
Yeah.
different types of property, equipment, etc. And there's other types of valuation methods, or EBITDA type this, multiply that and get some multiplier, etc. But if you look at some of the tech companies, even listed tech companies, I mean, sometimes their burn rate, if you like, I mean, it's massive. I mean, they burn millions, if not hundreds of
Yeah.
millions or billions, before they start making money, and some of them don't.
Yeah. Yeah.
So just paint that picture, because it's not a new industry anymore. I mean, we probably in the tech age for around 20 years now, since the
Yeah.
dot-com bubble in 99, 2000, or that whole Y2K scare that we had, and then it went into, do you remember those?
Yeah. I
But
remember
but
it.
lots has changed since then. But so it's mature, yet it's not that mature. So a lot of software and a lot of new, let's say, technologies are sold on the idea. It's sold on the dream, the plan, and everybody is wishing for the next unicorn, that
Yeah.
next big thing. And now they go out to market and try to, I mean, all from the beginning, they try to raise, let's say, even just angel funding or private investors, high net worth people that can put in some cash. And then they go through seed funding, and then it goes through the series A, B, C, etc. And in private equity. And hopefully one day they have their big exit.
Yeah.
I mean, if you look at that whole life cycle in terms of starting from an idea through to hopefully unicorn status, or a lot of ideas that just sort of just fizzle out, like those little
Yeah.
Christmas fizzlers or birthday fizzlers you see, they've just gone. So tell me a bit about that.
Yes, it's a very complex market, you could say, and it depends on your goals, what you try to achieve. And of course, there are players in the market. They dream big, and sometimes they only sell a dream. And I want to look. That's always my starting point. Looking at the data. So I want to see data. And of course, if someone has a dream, he or she can have a dream. That's no problem. But I want to look at data and see. Well, for instance, when you're just in the beginning of this business cycle and you're looking for a third party capital, I want to see, well, what did you do already? What is happening right now? Is there some sort of momentum going on? Is there not only speaking about financial results, but results within the e-commerce platform, the website, or whatever digital asset we are talking about? What is happening? How is the interaction with the public? And all these parts have to be translated within data. And then you can put a price tag on it. And that's, of course, a difficult part. But I'd like to start with a basic price tag. And this price tag, sometimes it's calculated through accountants. They say, well, I figured it all out. This is the price tag I can put on it on this website or platform or whatever it is, based upon financial data. Sometimes it's just a price tag that the market is willing to ask or to pay. And we go through the data and see if this starting point, this price tag is valid. Can we sustain that with other data? When we're looking under the hood of the website, and sometimes I have to say, well, I think it's overvalued or undervalued. And of course, then there's always the other parties who say, well, okay, I know what you mean, but I see other things on the way and whatever, because it's a discussion. But I always work with data and I want to see what is happening. I want to see the momentum and I want to see what is important within this line of business. Is it customer interaction? Is it being able to have a large time share of your potential audience? What is happening? And I want to see the growth within it. And then we can manage to put prices on it.
Yeah, I mean, the different businesses come to mind. You obviously got the big one, Twitter. I don't know if it's finished yet in terms of its deal, but I mean, there's what, 44 billion, and it hasn't been properly monetized yet. It's
No,
an asset that's sitting in limbo, yet someone's paying 44 billion for it. I mean, we know who that someone is,
yeah,
but the whole thing is, wow. I mean, that's a lot of money. I mean, some countries don't even have that as a GDP kind of
yeah,
thing. Yet you're paying that for one asset that's literally a piece of software
yeah,
with a whole lot of people interacting, and we're
yeah,
talking Twitter. I mean, it's just often just seen as sometimes a lot of noise as well, depending on who you talk to. So
yeah,
tell me a bit about that. So, when
yeah,
you're getting an asset that it perceived, like, how do you value something like that?
yeah. Well, then I come back to my five website value drivers, the organic strength, advertising strength, or technical strength, whatever. And then we have one very important strength playing a very big role in a deal like this. And that's the online authority strength. What is your market? What are you going after? And how is your online authority linked to that? Are you really the market leader within this niche or within this market? Or are you just playing second, third, or fourth based roles? For this instance, with Twitter, of course, they have a very large online authority. You can compare it with Facebook and what are they doing with it? You can compare it with LinkedIn, with other social media, and see what is happening, see what their revenues are. You have to look through that, but you have to start with, of course, the data. Is there still growth within, let's say, Twitter? Is it declining? Or what's happening? And how's the interaction with the market? And then you come up with some conclusion. And then it's about the vision of the one who is buying or
Yeah,
interested
and
in
they're
investing.
trying to get.
That's a very important part, of course.
Yes. So this comes back to the age old. I'm going back to sort of merger acquisition, integrations, and so on. And this comes back to that big debate where sort of valuation is in the eye of the beholder,
Yeah,
and often if you see potential, you're going to be more optimistic. If you see this as a strategic move that's less potential, but more of it's competition. I mean, Microsoft used to do that a lot. They go out and they buy a company and they just crush it,
yeah,
just get rid of the competition. It really depends on the sort of the eye of the beholder. But I'm going to come back to that legacy way, where the value of a business or the valuation, does that sit in the current state of affairs, or does that sit in what is potential in that business. What I'm sort of always stuck between is I can only pay for what the business is worth right now, year in now. Doesn't matter how much additional value I'm going to bring in terms of my skills, my people, my talent, or whatever I'm bringing in, or any other type of market direction I want to take the business in. But that is my input. That is not the current business. So the valuation is very difficult because you're saying, but I'm not going to pay for the potential I'm bringing.
Yeah.
I'm
Yep.
only
Yep.
going to pay for the value,
Yeah.
what it is right now.
But it's like buying a used car. You know, it's you can buy an old timer, and you say, "Well, I'm into buying old timer cars." But there's a difference. What kind of brand or type or whatever you are buying? What is the potential of some old timer cars compared to others? And which cars have potential to grow. And of course, you can say, "Well, I'm a very smart restorer of old cars. I can do all the technical stuff. I can put in new engines or whatever." But if you want to put your skills into it, you better put it in the right car and not in the wrong car. That's a bit what I'm what I mean.
And then that's a very good way of saying it. And I think that's always the difficulty. And I'm finding that in the digital space, this online space, often a lot more is a lot more weighting, I think, is put into future, is into growth and where this company could go, as opposed to the value right now. Because some of the valuations, if you go in a truly accounting valuation, it is just there's no value in it.
Yeah,
But if you say, okay, 3 or 5 years from now, that's a growing market. I mean, I've
yeah,
been talking to guys that are looking to do, let's say, vitamins and things like that. And yes, it's a flooded market, but they're looking at a specific type of custom vitamin. So you could go in and put in your details, and they'll send you tests and all that, and they'll manufacture a vitamin tablet just for you and your body and your
yeah,
diet and your whatever it is, your goals and so on. And so that's a different way of doing it, but that's in progress, let's say, and that the potential, and they've created the way that the website, let's call it the software, has been developed, so you can input all that stuff, but they haven't really got a market yet.
yeah,
So they've got the technology, but no market. So that's where your five
yeah,
sort of components come in, where you say, okay, well, it's strong over there, but it's not so strong over there. It needs work over there, etc. And that's how you get to your valuation.
yeah.
Is that a fair assumption?
That's a fair assumption. Yes, the investing part or the buying party can have sometimes wild dreams. While we can do all this stuff, but without seeing, well, is there a market for it, and how can we market our thing? And that's a very great challenge, of course. And I must say, sometimes people are too optimistic about market potential and technical skills. That's always a very difficult part, you know, to go from here to there. Um,
Yeah. So, so,
uh,
so leading on from the going from here to there. So let's go back to the M&A and integration and so on. So the purpose of integration or post-merger integration, post-acquisition integration is value capture, synergy creation. I mean, all those fancy words and so on. And it's about how do I extract value out of the entity? But you enter in a lot of the things that you do, this marketing, this digital optimization, this all this type of thing. I'm going to, let's say, not me, but let's say the M&A team decide they're going to buy a legacy business. Let's do a
mhm,
case study. So let's say a case study is it is a company that does retail, and they retail building supplies. So they do pipe fittings, cement, bricks, roofs, you name it,
yeah,
anything in the building supply. And they've got both B2C customers. They also have these trade customers that come in and that are regular builders and that would open accounts, etc. So that let's call it the legacy business. They've not yet gone online.
yeah,
Okay. So now the optimization and the value creation would be there's a great business. It's got, let's say, 200, 300 stores all over the place. So it's a
mhm,
decent business.
yeah,
They're selling a lot. They've got good brand identity. They've got everything like that. And now you've got this position where I'm going to buy that business. And I think the potential is not so much opening new stores, but it's now taking it online, going from
Right.
an old brick and mortar business
Yeah.
to an online business. So I see that as a potential. I could probably do something with it, but let me throw that case study at you and see how
Yeah.
you cope
Yeah.
with that.
What I would do in this particular case is always start with the core business and this part of your business that is really strong, where you can put as much value to the market as you can. That's a great example with building materials because you have all sorts of building materials. You can go online with all these elements right away if you want, no problem. But the question is that a smart way to approach the market? Maybe you can start with some product categories, some product market combinations, and go from that. Because online always prefers niche players, always prefers specialists, and you have to think about that. And another very important thing to consider is what is your market? And of course, geographical speaking, that's very important because I always see this, I call it mistake that you think, well, now I add an online shop, I can conquer the whole country or maybe the whole of Europe or whatever. No problem. And of course, technical, it's all possible. You can do that, no problem whatsoever. It will cost some money, but no problem.
Mm.
But I always say, well, you start with your core, and your core in this case is where are you now located? Where is some traction going on? And try to add that onto the online market by saying to your customers, well, we have also an online shop now. You can buy relatively easy, but go from these local points of strength and grow from there. Not going nationwide directly because it will take marketing cost a lot if you can't expect to put up an online shop and expect that traffic is coming right through the front door from day one. That's not going to happen. You have to advertise, you have to really invest in it. And the closer you are to what you are doing right now, the better traction you will have with existing customers going to new customers.
I love that answer because that's exactly, I mean, I actually have a case like that, exactly the same as that. And this is a few years in the making. It's not my company, but it's one that I've been observing, and it has taken them always a lot longer than they expected. They've
Yeah,
not invested enough money as they should have in the
yeah,
marketing. And it's not as simple as just creating an online store.
yeah,
And that leads me into the next question. You got a serious set of marketing skills on you. I mean, you talk a lot about data and those five
yeah,
sort of component parts, but you got a very, very powerful marketing mindset as well. If I look at online businesses and so on, a component often, if it's a product based business, is the fulfillment side of things. And most people forget about that. So you got all these digital assets
yeah,
floating around. So yes, you got payment gateways and you got shopping carts and graphics and landing pages and
yeah,
sales funnels and newsletters and catalogs. I mean, you name it, you've just got everything organized. But there's this layer of real life that happens. You still got to get the product
yeah,
once the purchase is made out to the customer. There's this fulfillment layer. Now,
yeah,
tell me a little bit about that because that I think often trips the people up in terms of the
yeah.
valuation side of things. Give me a little bit of your view on that.
Yeah, now you're talking about the headache part of doing online business. Fulfillment, of course, is very big challenge, always overlooked. It starts with having a good back office that is able to conversate with customers to help them with their problems. And of course, when you go international, it's always overlooked. Well, I'm based in the Netherlands, small country, so all companies want to go to Germany, to France, to Italy, whatever, to the UK, of course. But you have to have a back office that speaks all these languages. You can easily translate online stores in all sorts of languages, no problem. But there are going to be problems. There are going to be practical problems with customers, and you have to solve them. And you have to solve them by speaking to them, by emailing them, or whatever. And you need to have this language thing in order. That's international. If you're not going international, of course, fulfillment still is a big headache. I have some examples I've worked with companies that like 10 years ago were just totally different companies like they are now today. They had, let's for instance, a company in the B2B market. They had sales representatives. They had locations all over the country. And when you go to that business right now, they don't have sales reps anymore. They have a back office. They don't have all sorts of businesses on different locations, and everything is automatized. Robots are going through it, whatever. But going from this to that, it took a lot of energy, of course. And what you have to do is to do it in a smart way, not going too fast. You first have to be able to handle all this fulfillment by yourself or your team, and then going the other steps in hiring automation or robots or whatever. So that's a very difficult journey to go on, but do it easy and always have in mind that it will take more time than you think. It will take up more money than you would think. But you need, what's very important is that every step of the way, you need to see the progress. You need to see the progress within the data, within the sales, and then you can invest all along the way, not putting all this money right from the start.
Yeah, because there's a lot of learning that has to take place because you also need to bring on partners. I mean, you can't necessarily buy a fleet of vehicles or have tax experts, especially cross border.
Yeah,
You can't just all of a sudden just hire a whole lot of skills or assets in, and all of a sudden you've got a warehouse. Going from a people driven warehouse, for instance, or a
yeah,
fulfillment center to I think they call them black centers or dark centers where there's no human beings,
yeah,
there's no lights even because the robots don't need lights.
yeah,
And you got these robots picking and packing and distributing and just conveyor belts and everything just
yeah,
moving. And nobody goes inside unless something's broken just to do
yeah.
some maintenance.
Dangerous to go inside.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. Because it's all dark.
Yeah,
But I think just to move from human to there is already a big jump. I mean,
yeah,
that's not even in the goal, right? Let's call it core software and the core scanners and just the right trained staff. And let's start with a small 2 or 3, 4
yeah,
smaller distribution centers and then eventually bring it into one. So there's a process. So when I come back to I mean, the topic of our conversation is 100 days and beyond. And so we're talking about merger acquisition integrations. So what happens after that is if there's a plan to improve or increase,
mhm,
let's say product-based business distribution, etc., there are a lot more pitfalls and that's for the audience to think this one through. With a digital type of business, there's still a physical element, but that physical element often, especially product-based business, that physical element is often hidden to the eye unless you've actually gone through that process of understanding and actually living the nightmare of fulfillment because it can get pretty bad.
yeah,
If we look on the services or let's call it software or software as a service even, or even just service-based businesses, so consulting, accounting, and other firms that are starting to render their services online. Doctors I see are going online. I see there's a whole range of health and other mental experts and training courses, and I mean, you name it. There's a whole other sphere that's non-product, intangible related.
yeah,
So now you can still go online and serve the world. But I think you said something very, very important earlier, and that's in the online space and in the digital world, you're looking at niching. Niching is probably the only thing you can do to actually get ahead, but also survive in this marketplace that we're in. Tell me a bit about that. I mean, we're talking about 100
yeah,
days and beyond. It's obviously going to take a lot more than 100 days to get
yeah,
proper fulfillment and improvements and all
yeah,
the synergy capture. So you're probably looking at post-merger integration for a product-based digital business. You're looking at 2 to 3 years, maybe.
yeah,
I
yeah,
mean,
yeah.
and it's an ongoing thing, isn't it? I mean, but yeah, if you look at the services side of things, tell me a little bit about that.
Well, one thing, like you said, niching will be very important, and in my opinion, will be more important in the coming years. I think that will be a wise step. And at the end result, you will see that businesses will sell some product market combinations to other parties and invest more in their core business. So that's a very important part, niching. With service-based companies, that's there's also a challenge. I've worked with some law firms. Most of the new customers are coming from online sources, so they have to be visible there on these platforms and search engines. I asked the lawyers of some of these firms to put on an article every month on the website within their specific niche. And of course, the first thing they say to me, well, I have to write this article. I have to think about it. Yes, that's what I ask you. And who's paying for that? I'm a lawyer, you know. It's
You paid for my time.
yeah, that's my business. I'll say, ah, well, it's for free. You have to do this, but I will show you that your efforts and all your energy um, will make money, and I can show you that to the data. You make this article, and after a few months, I come back and I'll show you what kind of traffic this has generated, what kind of leads these articles have generated. So you're not doing it for free. You're not doing it for whatever. That's one example. You have to show that all the efforts they are putting into it, that they result in leads, in customers, and whatever. That was one example of a large law firm that me, the marketing team of the law firm, everyone was on the same page, but not the lawyers who had to do their work.
And they say,
But that,
I charge, I don't know, X thousand euros an hour, and
yeah,
now you want me to give this away for free? Are you crazy?
yeah.
You can't do that.
That's the thing. If it's not scalable, if human beings are the bottleneck, you can say, you have to be very keen where to put your money and where to put your energy. And that's a bigger challenge than with products or with software products that you say, well, I can scale this, whatever. It's just a software product. Whoever orders it, I don't care, you know. But that's a different approach.
I want to ask you also, with your marketing hat on, and also coming back into the digital space, and even business in general, when you're doing M&A work, you'll look at the assets as if they are non-living things, right? So you'll look at them as things that can grow organically, etc.
Yeah.
But still, they're not human beings. But when you're starting to get into the space where you have personas that drive brands, if you name a name, you could probably link it to a product. I mean, just for the sake of the audience and for ease, if you say Steve Jobs, you know exactly what product we're talking about. If
Yeah.
if you say Elon Musk, you know exactly what products you're
Yeah.
talking about. So when it comes to acquisitions, now let's say, for instance, let's go back to, I mean, we already spoke about Twitter, and it's all about Elon Musk and everyone always talking about him. But if we go back and we say, all right, let's say he wants to sell the Tesla.
Yeah.
He wants to offload Tesla we've seen that as soon as he does something in the share price,
Yeah.
there's always an impact. I mean, if he just tweets something,
Yeah.
ironically, um, down goes the price. If he does something in a positive way, up goes the price. So it's all about him. Now, if
Yeah.
you go and now, what are you actually buying? Because are you buying, now the persona might leave.
Yeah. That's
Now,
that. Yeah.
now you're going to relook at the valuation.
I always think that that's a very difficult part. In generally, I don't like that a lot of persona is attached to a company
Yeah.
or to a digital asset or whatever, because, well, it's a psychological effect and it plays a role, but uh, I cannot say what happens when this person is not involved in it anymore. Is it going to have a positive or a negative impact? I cannot put it into data or into figures. It's not a very good thing to have. If you are this persona, of course, you can say, well, I have magic powers or whatever.
If we just go down one level, then obviously, when you're doing M&A and you're doing post-merger integration, the team that stay behind often are critical to the success of the
Yeah,
ongoing survival of the company, but also, they're, from the integration point of view, bringing different companies together, making sure that you are extracting the value, but you're also making sure you keep key talent. But
yeah,
one of the key things that often get looked at are, who's going to be the jockey, the driver, or the drivers of this entity once the acquisition takes place. And I mean, that's now less persona, but more around their skills and abilities and so on. Would you say that in the digital world, that still is the case? Or is it less so? I mean, has digital potentially become more important than the jockeys? Or would you say it's the same as legacy businesses?
Within the digital market, the human part is underrated. So uh, I'm always in favor to stress the human part. And with post merger integration, of course, that goes for all acquisitions. There's this existing team that worked on the old websites, on the old company, and they did a good job in most cases. And of course, there's this new entity coming in, and he or she has different plans. And again, I would stress and keep that human part alive, because in the end, when I'm looking at data, it's not data, it's human behavior I'm looking at. So that's one thing. It's always human behavior. It's not a click. It's a human who is clicking. It's always a human thing. Don't see it as clicks. Don't see it as data. Don't see it as all possibilities on the technical side. It's human. The human factor is so important, and in many cases overlooked. Many cases.
There's almost become a blind spot, I believe anyway, that just because you can change human behavior into bits and bytes, zeros and ones,
Uh,
and you can look at it on a spreadsheet or graphs and
yeah,
so on. Now, all of a sudden, it dehumanizes
yeah,
human behavior into a bunch of stats and little on and off switches,
yeah.
zeros and ones. I think there's a big problem there, and I think that's where M&A practitioners and especially the integration practitioners, in my mind, need to be a lot more focused on saying, let's not get distracted by all this data, although data is important, but remembering that data comes from human behavior,
Uh,
and let's not get distracted for data's sake. Let's make sure that there's a human behavior. And that's a massively valid point.
yeah. That's a challenge. If we see this data, we can go from here to there by putting some strings or whatever. In the end, it's not the case. We need to have the human factor on the first spot in every business. These are persons, and I want to see the interaction with the human behavior of real human persons.
And I think people are pushing back. I think there's been a big pushback against this depersonalization, and
Yeah,
people want to be taken into account individually. I
I
want
think
to
that
ask
that's
you
one
about
of the biggest challenges of the next 10 to 20 years for all the people on earth. I think keep it human. Keep it human. Digital is terrific. It's great. Keep it human.
keep it, yeah, actually become more human again, because I
Yeah,
think we've actually swayed, and then
yeah,
obviously there's a whole lot of other things that have gone on recently where there's a lot more noise about all kinds of, flavor of the month issues around diversity and inclusion and all that. And it's almost like the minorities are leading the majorities.
yeah,
The regular people out there, the 99% of the people generally are almost unheard.
yeah,
But they're on the periphery, there are maybe 1 or 2%
yeah,
that are very, very noisy. So
yeah,
therefore, it gets extrapolated as everybody. And it's like, no, in fact, there's
yeah,
probably a much larger of a silent base out there that just carry on with their lives,
yeah,
that are buying, that are clicking, that are engaging with brands, that are really driving the economies. It's not necessarily the outliers. And
yeah.
and you got to be very, very careful with how you read
Yeah, and then of course in the online market space, the one with the largest voice or whoever speaks out is getting the lights on him or her. But you have to look through that.
That's the
Yeah,
hard part. That's how you're gonna be able to see value. We're coming to the end of the podcast, Paul, and I've thoroughly enjoyed our conversation, and thank you very much for your thoughts
well,
so
me too.
far. I want to maybe just go a bit more personal and say you've got a very strong digital background, marketing, and I was hoping that you could share maybe just one or two golden nuggets, a few sort of wise words, just a few ideas, just for the audience in general, just from your point of view. How do you see things and so
Yeah.
on?
Well, I think we are entering a different phase, and I would suggest focus on your core business and think about what is driving you, where your passion is, and where you can add the most value to your market. And think about this value. Value is so important. Think about what you're special about and what you can add, in which way you can help your customers. Helping is very important. And that means sometimes resize your company to focus on these parts where your heart lies and where your future lies. So really refocus on your core business and on your passion as an entrepreneur or as a company, because a company can also have a passion. If you look to the company and the people who are working there, if you ask them, what do you like of this company? Well, you can come up with some sort of the same answers, and that's the way to go forward.
Yeah, and I suppose the big drive for growth is less important than what should be the drive for value, for
Yeah,
contribution, for being human. I think we spoke about that as well.
yeah,
Taking people into account and not letting the peripheral noise overcome your view of that there's still real people out there.
yeah,
And don't let the noise drown out the real thing. I want to just talk a little bit about you. I mean, clearly you've worked incredibly hard in your life and you've built up a momentum. Tell me a little bit about your company and about you, family wise, etc.
yeah,
How do you balance the two? I mean, let's talk about your company. What have you done? What do you
yeah.
do right now? And then
Well,
let's go into sort of balancing and how do you,
yeah.
keep yourself sane in this crazy world that we live in.
That's a very, very difficult challenge. But well, what I do right now is I still work as an online marketing consultant. And through this knowledge, I also have a company called Webwords Partners. We analyze data and establish the worth of websites and e-commerce sites. My company is based in the Netherlands, but I live in Belgium. So I cross the border every day. When I do that, sometimes I work from home, but in most cases I cross the border. Trying to keep sane in this world is to look beyond the business you are working and look at how society is pushed to change to a level you don't want, because I think that's happening too. And I think for the coming years, that will be the real challenge. It's not digital that is important. It's not all the things you hear or read or whatever. It's humanity. And if I would say something, well, let's stay human and focus on that, because that's our future. That's what I believe.
No, that's wonderful. I'm actually just sharing your company Webworth Partners on the screen for those that can see that. I just want to say thank you very much, Paul. I think for me, this has been fascinating because it's a different slant, different way of looking at post-merger integrations, at a world that's becoming more and more digitized. And any company that doesn't have at least one or two bits of software,
Yeah,
I don't think you can find them anymore, even if it's just sending a message, a text message to their customers saying, "Hey, I'm available. Could you want to buy?"
yeah.
All the way through to very, very complex systems. Paul, thank you very, very much. I really do appreciate you coming on the show today. Fascinating conversation. Please come back at some stage in the future and all the best of luck with your go forward journey. And hopefully, you know, everything turns out well. And looks like it's going very well for you and your company right now.
Okay.
And best of luck for the future.
Well, thank you, Dudley, for having me. I like it very much. Always like to discuss things about the way forward. So, and you have a great show. Keep on doing the great stuff you're doing.
I will do. Thank you. And everyone, you can get hold of Paul, I think, on LinkedIn. You have your profile is on
Yeah.
LinkedIn, and obviously you can Google that. And we'll catch up with you soon.
Thank you, Dudley. Bye bye.
All right. All right. Hi, everybody. This is Dudley again. And if you need help with a future or existing post-merger integration, I want to invite you to arrange a free, no obligation meeting with us. During the meeting, we'll find out exactly what you need, what your challenges are, and we'll explain how our unique PMI slipstream method can help you. Simply call us or visit mergerintegration.co.uk. That's mergerintegration.co.uk, or come to our website, skillfulpursuit.com.